Hello and welcome everybody to the Cyber Foundation Friday for this week. Uh, we are extending Cyber Back to School by a day here today. I am live on Cyber Back to School right now, as well as the Captain Hyperscaler YouTube channel, as well as the Captain Hyperscaler LinkedIn channel for this live event. But I wanted to tie in the end of the Cyber Back to School event into this session as well, because I wanted to thank all of the participants and everybody that provided sessions for the inaugural Cyber Back to School. I've been doing events in the community for 5 years now, little over close to 6 in terms of my participation in these types of events. But hosting them myself, I started Azure Back to School in 2019, and so we've had 5 years of that, and then this year we did the Cyber Back to School event, and over the course of the month, we had a session a day. Some of those were sessions of mine, but many of them were from people within the community. So I want to give a shout out and a big thank you to them for that. We had 23 unique speakers for Cyber Back to School this year, and being the first year of this event, and me organizing it probably rather quickly, and is amazing. So I really appreciate that. I really appreciate everybody that has been involved and has listened to and been a part of the various sessions, and looked at and reviewed the sessions, and did all of those. Did everything to support it. I really appreciate that. So I want to thank everybody for their participation this past month in October, to make what I feel is any community event that's sharing information is a success. So I want to thank everybody for that, and we'll definitely be doing this again next year for October and for Cyber Awareness Month, because even though Cyber Awareness Month is over, cyber awareness is a constant need and a constant aspect of our lives, as I stated on a post that I put up over the course of the last 15 minutes about some of the courses that I have coming up, and continuing to offer my special October price for these next 2 courses that I'm offering. And I'll talk about that here in a second. But again, thanks to all the participants, all of the everybody that provided the session, everybody that watched our sessions, everybody that followed and subscribed to Cyber Back to School. Cyber Back to School, the page is still available. It will continue. That domain will continue to be open, and will be continue to be the place to look for Cyber Back to School in future years to come as well. So again, and most of the links, a lot of the links, are on the Cyber Back to School YouTube channel. So go and subscribe to that, as well as the Captain Hyperscaler channel, which is where I put many of my other events as well as, like I said, I've been doing a lot of LinkedIn Live also, to just make sure that we are extending our reach and extending our cyber awareness and risk awareness as a group. So thanks everybody again for all of your support. Again, cyberbacktoschool.com. You can go, if you missed it, feel free to go to that link. You can find all of the sessions by day. You can look it up. There's links in there for the specific sessions, so you can review the sessions. If you're looking for a specific speaker, the speaker list is in there. There's a link just to go to the speaker, and you can see the sessions provided by that speaker, as well as the full schedule. So if you want to just go and put some time aside and go through each day, you can certainly do that as well. So thank you everybody again for being a part of Cyber Back to School, putting on the ticker CaptainHyperscaler.com as well. CaptainHyperscaler.com is helpful to find out and look at what trainings that we have to offer, whether it's a custom course for your organization or a scheduled open enrollment, which we have some of those coming up, and we have a link to our calendar in the website as well. So let's get into today's topic. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about implementation tiers, and we talked a little bit about profiles within the implementation tiers. And I decided at that point that I was going to change the topic for this particular session to talk about the phases of a risk management action plan. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, profiling is an integral part of that. So we'll still talk a little bit about profiles and the implementation and review the implementation tiers a bit. And I hit a wrong button here. Let's get back there. There we go. Have my cursor in the wrong screen. So welcome everybody. If this is the first session you've attended, my name is Dwayne Natwick. I am the CEO and owner of Captain Hyperscaler. I'm also a APMG accredited trainer for Osaka. I also do Accolade. I'm an Accolade, ISC2, Microsoft, CompTIA, AI Certs certified partner. I do a lot of training around Accolade and Osaka primarily for Captain Hyperscaler. ISC2, I do teach directly for them, and I do a lot of Microsoft training through other learning partners. Primarily, we focus here at Captain Hyperscaler on building your origin story and your hero saga based on what you need. So we try to have areas of need to help you build that risk-aware culture. And that's really where these Cyber Foundation Fridays were born out of, was to bring a little bit of our training to you for no cost. And hopefully you find areas in which you want to improve your organization that we can help you with. And from that, we have our various sessions, our 3-tier rotating topics around cyber resilience, risk management, and AI security and risk awareness as well. We are in the final of the 3 sessions around cyber resilience. And, when we talk about cyber resilience, we talk a lot about risk and risk awareness and risk profiling and risk prioritization, which we'll talk a lot about today. So they aren't interrelated. They are interrelated topics. So all 9 of these sessions that we're providing up until mid-November are all relevant and all relevant topics to how and what you need to do to build a risk-aware culture, build cyber resilience, build risk awareness, protect data, and protect information from it. Protect your information and your assets from when you're utilizing AI technologies and things of that nature are all areas that you need to address. And so all of these topics, these topics and everything that we've recorded can be found on the Captain Hyperscaler LinkedIn page. You can look at past events and find the LinkedIn Learning recording, or you can go and subscribe to the Captain Hyperscaler YouTube channel, and everything is there as well as since this was in line with Cybersecurity Month, they are also a good amount of them actually are in the Cyber Back to School YouTube channel. But they're also, if you go into the schedule and look up like me as a speaker, you'll find that I linked back to the Captain Hyperscaler recording for specifically the first session that was in September. I did bring that into the schedule and bring that into Cyber Back to School Cyber Awareness Month. So again, got a couple more sessions coming after this. We'll talk about risk strategy and governance next week. And then the final session will be around AI risks and ethics to kind of bring everything into the AI realm and the aspect of emerging technology and what we need to account for and understand, both as uh, cyber and risk professionals as well as users. So generally what I feel these cyber foundation Fridays are for everybody, not just for people that have a technical background. So keep that in mind. If you hear or listen in on one of these Friday sessions and feel that it is beneficial to others, please feel free to share it with people within your organization. And I try to keep it so it's not technical. And that's one of the things that a lot of this content goes around and aligns a lot with what I teach in terms of the Accolade certifications. And one of the things that I like about the Accolade certifications, as well as how and the alignment with the cybersecurity framework and the risk management framework and the AI risk management framework, that really all of these topics really align to, is that they are very business like. They're very business related. And I want to thank the comment that says that these sessions are awesome. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate your comments. Feel free to share and comment in the chat. It does come across on my streaming service, so I can respond to those accordingly. So let's get and I keep going into the wrong place and changing that. So another quick note. I was offering $50 off our normally discounted price on an Accolade training over the course of Cyber Awareness Month, and I thank everybody that took advantage of that and was a part of the training courses that I provided in October. I do still have 2 scheduled courses around Accolade that are coming up next week and the week after. So on November 6th and 7th, from 8 to 11 a.m. Eastern time, or 1 to 4 p.m. UTC, I have a live virtual instructor-led training on the risk management practitioner, which is a beta exam, a beta certification of Accolades. The beta exam ends on November 15th. So prepare, so this gives you an opportunity to prepare with me for that exam and take that exam. I have taken that exam. I took it the first day or two after it came out, as well as the risk management foundations exam, which just came out of beta. Ended beta testing in October 15th, and all of the results came this week. So if you follow Accolade if you follow me, you probably saw me liking and you saw me posting that I did pass the foundation exam. So I am certified in the Accolade Cyber Risk Management Foundation, and hopefully, knock on wood, that I will pass once the practitioner comes out and the results come out probably later in November, early December. So have that class coming up next week. So again, I'm offering 50% off, offering also the voucher along with that. And then the cyber resilience practitioner course, which is the very first certifications that Accolade came out, was the cyber resilience fundamentals, which is going to also change naming to foundations here in the next iteration, and the cyber resilience practitioner. I'm offering the cyber resilient practitioner course. Instead of being Wednesday, Thursday, it's going to be Tuesday, Thursday, but at the same 3-hour window. So you're essentially, it's 6 hours of class time over 2 days. And these are, the practitioner courses are very workshop based. And if you have not gone through the foundation course, or if you're new to risk management, or if you're new to cyber resilience, we do have fundamentals courses, and you can actually reach out to me if you want, I can give you a special discount on the Udemy courses that I have for both of the foundation courses, so that you can kind of get yourself acclimated with those topics before taking the course. But even so, the there is a level of continuity between the foundations and the practitioner. But if you've been around cyber security or risk management at all, it shouldn't be hard to kind of pick up and follow. But like I said, I can provide you with the information necessary. If you do the cyber resilience course, there's also the Mastering Cyber Resiliency book by Accolade that you'll get provided as well. So, which has actually the content for the cyber resilience fundamentals course built into it. The book is about the combination certifications, essentially, and everything you need to know, which is one of the great things I do like about being an Accolade training partner is the aspect of all of the of how they build from, as we talk at Captain Hyperscaler, an origin story, and then start that hero saga around cyber resilience or risk management or AI security. Uh, we can build with the Accolade courses with their certification and their ISO processes, and then build into other certifications as well, like ITIL or ASACA or CompTIA, and go from there. So thanks everybody, and thanks of course to Accolade for their support to Captain Hyperscaler and myself as a training partner. They are a great group to work with, and like I said, we have those classes coming up. I just posted on the Captain Hyperscaler LinkedIn page a link to pay and register for those courses if you're interested. So what are we gonna, so let's jump into actual today's topic. We've got a good amount to talk about today. Probably going to go a good hour, hour and a half today. A little bit, somewhat longer than some of the previous sessions, but shorter than some of the others, because I think the first session we went maybe close to the 2 hour time frame. I schedule these for 2 hours, and we'll cover we'll be anywhere between 60 and 120 minutes. So we'll go through this quite quickly. This is foundationally the information that I teach in the cyber resilience practitioner course. So we're going to just go through it at a really quick rate. Gives you a good primer to the cyber resilience practitioner course if you want to take that on the 12th and the 14th, and you can go from there. So we're going to talk about the concepts of risk and risk action plan. We talked about the risk management framework and what is risk and things like that a few weeks ago. Well, really at this point, since this is the third session, about 6-7 weeks ago. So we'll kind of review a little bit, and then we'll go into the different phases of building of executing a risk management action plan. And as Accolade certifications and training evolve, the risk management action plan has been kind of evolving in terms of naming, and I think it's actually going to change to an acronym of CAMP, and I can't remember what CAMP is currently. It hasn't come into my brain completely yet, but we will say risk management action plan, because that's all it is. It is a plan of action for managing risk, for prioritizing risk, and executing a risk-aware culture within our organization. So what does that look like? So let's talk about some of the concepts of this. And again, for review, what is a risk? A risk is a potential for any kind of loss or damage or harm resulting from any kinds of threats exploiting a vulnerability. Now, this is kind of the formal definition, and it says digital systems and assets. Doesn't necessarily have to be digital assets, doesn't have to necessarily be digital systems. It could be our physical environment as well. If we think about a threat of a hurricane, or a threat of a tornado, or a threat of a fire, or a threat of an earthquake. what is our vulnerability as an organization to that? And when we're building cyber resilience, we need to understand that. It's why you potentially would not build, a put a put two offices and two data centers in Florida or California. You want to have them separated. You want to have maybe Florida and you want to have California, because there's going to be different physical threats and physical vulnerabilities you may have in those areas. So those are things we have to think about. And when we're thinking about risk, those are areas of concern, areas that we want to understand. And a key aspect to the overall process to building our action plan around all of that, and building risk awareness and building risk knowledge, is understanding what the impact is going to be, or really the fallout of it all, and whether that impact is foreseeable to us. Does do can we take a look at a single risk, understand the likelihood it's going to happen to us, and what impact that's going to have to our organization. We're trying to understand and see the future. We're going to do some level of analysis, whether it's quantitative because we have the numbers, or it's qualitative because we have a scenario. But what is that going to be? Um, Hurricane Milton went through, right after Hurricane Helene went through Florida. Hurricane Helene took its turn up the East Coast and really hit the mountains of eastern Tennessee and western North Carolina, unlike anybody has ever seen. In those areas. My sister and brother-in-law had moved about 6 months ago out of the area of North Carolina that was pretty well decimated, that Asheville, Hendersonville area. And they lived up on a mountain, and what I heard from her after talking to some of her previous neighbors is they were stuck on a mountain for a few days because the road got completely washed out on the mountain, because Helene brought so much water to that region. And they were cut off essentially on a mountain for days. And so and lots of other people have even worse horror stories about it. They actually, her friends were actually very lucky in terms of what took place. But again, and the risks again, Milton coming in right behind it struck Tampa and St. Petersburg area. Did sizable damage that I didn't even realize the amount of damage. I saw the damage that it did to the baseball stadium that the Tampa Bay Rays played in, and they're talking about it not even being potentially playable in the next baseball season, which doesn't start for another 5 to 6 months. So they're gonna that was the amount of damage that particularly did. So is that foreseeable? No, it's the impact is not foreseeable. The likelihood of a hurricane coming through Florida is probably fairly likely, and something that needs to be documented and estimated in terms of what that foreseeable impact is going to be. Did eastern Tennessee and western North Carolina, was it foreseeable that a hurricane was going to come through and wash away essentially the highway that goes through the that goes through the Appalachian Mountains, that connects Tennessee to North Carolina in its most direct route? Nobody realized that, and they're talking about that highway not being fully operational for 2 years because of all the damage that was done. That was not foreseeable. That was not understood, and those are things that we can't foresee the impact of all of our risks. But if you live in southeastern United States, the likelihood of a hurricane coming through your area is highly possible. But is it foreseeable the amount of the impact of the damage like these particular hurricanes did? Not completely. Not in the terms of 12 months down the road. It's much quicker. But but you need to understand and determine the organization's tolerance if that impact is very large. To what level do we tolerate the damage that may come from a hurricane? Those are all things that we need to consider and things that we need to think about and really predict. And the key to it all, and the key to the to building some level of an action plan, then, is to prioritize our risks, understand where our risks, where we stand today as in our profile as an organization, in terms of uh, our own uh, awareness to risk and thoughts about risk and handling of risk. How do we do that today, and how are we going to do that tomorrow? And that's really where do we want to be? Where are we today? Where do we want to be tomorrow? And we want to make that reasonable. We want to make it repeatable. We want to make it actionable. And that's really a key piece to our cybersecurity practices as we build a cyber resilient and risk aware culture within our organization. We want to make it needs to be receivable, reliable and repeatable. And again, we're going to prioritize and make it reasonable as well. When we think about mandates, like the Federal Trade Commission, if you're in the jurisdiction of the FTC, reasonable security measures are one of the statements in there. And we don't talk a whole lot about standards. And I was actually teaching the Cyber Resilience Foundation course this week, and we are going through a lot of these concepts and going through the NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. And the great thing about that document is it's only a 32-page document, and it really establishes a very nice business related framework to your organization. If your organization is trying to find a way to build some level of risk awareness and cyber resilience, this document is very good to help you out. So you can very easily just go to nist.gov or just use your favorite search engine and type cybersecurity framework 2.0, and you can find a PDF of the 32-page document. And it builds that framework. It builds something that you can do and is actionable to profiling your organization of where they are today and where they want to get to. And building an action plan and building reasonable and repeatable cybersecurity practices and adopting at least some framework. And the reason I say this, reason I lead with the cybersecurity framework rather than the risk management framework, is the cybersecurity framework is very business based. It is based on business objectives, business tolerance, and those areas that are really hard for us as cybersecurity professionals and practitioners to really relate to other to relate to the business and really build that business acumen and that business justification aspect of things. So we want to be able to thrive amidst various evolving cybersecurity risks, and having a reasonable and repeatable framework and practice is going to do that. The risk management framework itself, which we've talked about in the risk management Foundation Friday topics, is very system related. It's specific to the system. Now, it relates system and digital and information assets back to the business strategy and everything like that, but not. And it's kind of in a way, can underlay and reinforce the building a cybersecurity framework, and that's really key. We don't talk about compliance to standards and things like that, like the FTC example in the previous slide, but those are external factors that mold our business objectives, our business, and our business requirements in a lot of cases. So those are things that we need to consider as well. Okay, so there are three phases, and we'll talk, and that's what we're going to really focus on here today, is the three phases of the cyber risk management action plan. Okay. Again, the naming convention here is evolving. But it is ultimately an actionable plan. So, and anybody that is in project management or that is out here knows that action plan, a plan that we're going to execute needs to have a definitive beginning and a definitive end. And because cyber risk management as a whole, building a cyber resilient and risk aware culture are a continuous effort. The action plan does have a definitive beginning and an end, but it has a continuum to it as well, that we're going to talk in 12-month chunks to what we are working toward and what we are executing on. But from there, there's a reevaluation and a continuous movement to better and to move forward with a new set of priorities, a new set of risks that we're going to address in the next 12 months. And that's exactly what we're going to do, and what we're going to talk about here quickly during this session here today. Again, very quickly, we're going to go through all of this because what I'm not going to do is teach you the 6 hours of the cyber resilience practitioner course, but it's going to give you a good primer, like I said, to the information we discuss in that course, and how we really workshop it a little bit more than we're going to do here today. Phase one is, first and foremost, we got to know we can't protect, we can't act upon something we don't know is there, and something that we don't understand, don't believe is true. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to discover our top cybersecurity risks, our top cyber risks, and we're going to prioritize them. And we'll talk about how that's done here in a moment. Next, then, once we have that priority in place, we're going to create our plan of action. We could even draw in this plan as a plan of action and milestones, and we're going to create that plan, and then finally we're going to conduct maintenance and updates on that plan again. And that update aspect of things is really, when we go about it, we continue to go on. And like I said, it's a 12-month process that we look at it, and then we have then the 13th month where we start all over again. So it is a continuum, just like everything really should be. We are not linear really in anything that we do in terms of risk awareness, risk management, cyber resilience. It is always a continuous circle. It's a life cycle. We've got data life cycles, we've got system development life cycles, we've got risk, cybersecurity framework cycles, risk management life cycles in terms of those frameworks as well. And that's exactly what it comes down to. 5 questions that we ask, first and foremost, as we build and move into these phases. The key, and we're going to ask a lot more questions, but the key around these questions are what we need to do to build that actionable plan. So first question is, what are our top cyber risks to my organization? Am I getting the biggest return possible for my investments? For my investment in risk management, in cyber risk management. Does everybody within the organization, our executives and leaders, understand our plans? Do they advocate for them? It doesn't really say that, but that's a key aspect, and something that I constantly say when I talk about building a culture is the executives and leaders, those leading stakeholders within our organization, need to advocate for the culture before it can be executed by everybody else. And so that's really, and again, that kind of goes into then that question 4, does everyone at work know how they can help? So again, number 3, do they understand our plans? Do they agree with those plans? Do those plans align with the mission and objectives of the business? So that then can we then make sure that we have awareness across the rest of the organization? And the final question, what do you tell to the biggest stakeholders and customers when they ask, what are you doing about cybersecurity? So one of the things that we'll we'll briefly touch on, but we talk a lot more. And I've had some very candid discussions about uh, within my training for this particular workshop, and is marketing, internal and external marketing. And it's not marketing that we think about of, oh, we're posting stuff on social media, or we're doing commercials and things of that nature. It is, how are we positioning, like those last three questions for the most part, how are we positioning that with all of the stakeholders, whether it's the executives and leaders, whether it's our internal stakeholders and users, or whether it's our customers and external stakeholders in our supply chain, around what are we doing about cybersecurity, and where are we investing in cybersecurity? That 1 and 2 very much build upon 5, really, and 3 and 4, really. Those first 4 questions, if a customer asks, what are you doing about cybersecurity? We should be able to say, we're prioritizing these 5 uh, primary risks over the next 12 months. And the next 5 for the following 12 months are these. We're evaluating that on a constant basis, depending on emerging technologies. And we are making sure that we are investing our time and resources in those. And this aligns with the business mission of X, Y, and Z, and all of our team, everybody within our organization believes in fostering a culture of risk awareness and cyber resilience, or whatever we want to say. That's my just my off the cuff elevator pitch to give my customers and stakeholders. Um, so and that's really, those 5 questions really then become how we move into discovering our top cyber risks. Okay, so everything should really be influenced by those 5 questions. And really, when we go through discovering our top cyber risks, we should be looking at that in that and should really be constantly thinking about those 5 questions. And one of the key things in our discovering of our risk is interviewing the executives, interviewing the stakeholders, interviewing the people within our organization, as well as maybe even some of those customers and some of those stakeholders, in terms of what risks are they concerned about as well. So we'll talk about these 8 tasks, or 8 steps to discovering our top cyber risks. First one, widen your scope. Next, we need to get buy-in. That question 3 and those questions 3 and 4 are going to be very key, especially number 3. Selling to the executives and leaders how important this is, what we need to do. Again, we'll talk more about each of these. Selecting the interviewees, creating a questionnaire that's tailored to those interviewees. When we're creating any kind of questionnaire or doing any kind of awareness training or interviewing, it should be tailored to what's important to them to some point, as well as not just what's important on our agenda. Okay, we need to make sure that takes place. From there, from that questionnaire, we're going to determine our target scores, and then conduct our interviews. And so we're going to go in understanding, our key areas of concern, and then we're going to, based a lot on our organizational profiles, which again is in the fundamentals class for the most part, but we'll talk about that a little bit here. Then we conduct the interviews. We compile the scores, and then we know our top risks, and then we can communicate that with everybody. So widen your scope. What are we talking about widening our scope? This is not just technological aspects. This is business aspects as well. And a key aspect to widening our scope is looking at the functions of the cybersecurity framework and what are the key categories that pertain to our business. Again, there's 22. So there's 6 functions. You can see them here. There's 22 categories, which those are all there as well. And there's 106 essentially subcategories or activities slash outcomes that come out of each of those categories. For example, if we're looking at PR.ds, data security, uh, one of those outcomes in there is information at rest should data at rest should be protected. Um, Data in use should be protected, and data in transit should be protected. Those are three statements under data security. And then I think the fourth statement in there is that data should be backed up. So that covers the actionable tasks out of data security essentially. And so when we look at that, and we ultimately can build upon that based on our overall risk, but widening that scope though. Not let's not look at where we're just at today, but where do we want to get to tomorrow? And that's a key point and a key aspect to it all. Getting buy-in, we're going to need to make sure that the people involved are involved, and they are bought into it. So again, going back to how much do the executives and leaders know what our cyber risk plans are, or what our goals are, versus how do our goals align to the organization as a whole, are going to be very key aspects to that. And you've got audit and assessment in here in terms of what we're doing. And a lot of times, if you really get specific around the definition of the two, they both do a lot of the same things, but generally an audit is customarily thought of as an externally driven activity, where an assessment's more internally driven. Doesn't really matter in this particular plan. It's just more of a formality, actually. Getting buy-in again, getting ourselves sending getting an executive to send this is going to have more impact than just you as the cyber risk practitioner or professional doing it. So you want to get buy-in, you want to get the advocacy from the executives to kind of say, hey, we're going to be doing this process, we're going to be going through this interview process, and get the CEO to say it. Okay. Selecting then the interviewees. Who are we going to select? Who are our champions? Who might be our difficult users? Could be, ways that we select it, making sure that there's no conflicts of interest. Don't select people on like your own team that's going to be involved in the actionable processes. We want to make sure that they're people that are using the technology, that are interacting with it day to day, and interacting even with our processes and procedures and things like that, because those are all things we're going to evaluate, not just how we are handling data, but what is our process of doing things? What's our process? If we're building a risk aware culture and building cyber resilience, their understanding of risk and what risks are out there are generally going to be things that we need to consider as well. Again, we don't just want to have the the worker bees, the people that are just contributing, the individual contributors or the team contributors. We want to have some leadership, especially senior level, mid managers should all be involved in terms of the interview process as well, because they're going to have different, there's going to be different perspectives and different opinions. Some actionable areas around protect and detect and respond and recover, the senior level managers might not understand, the business continuity of it all, or the level of responsibility to of the system or the process on our overall business mission. But the middle managers are going to know that, and the middle managers are going to know the pain that everybody feels. The users are going to also know their level of pain when something doesn't work properly. Again, geographic considerations. If we don't if we're outside of just a local geography and we are working beyond that, then we need to take that into account, because different cultures different are going to operate differently. So we need to have that inclusiveness. When we think about things like responsible AI, we talk about different cultures and different ways that different geographies do things. It's going to be the same from this standpoint too. They're going to see different risks in different ways as well. So then we generate our questionnaire, and one of the things that we do in terms of generating that questionnaire is we will take one of the areas of the risk management framework, and one of those subcategories within and look at each of the this one's particularly looking at each of the functions. So at a high level, we're going to look at each of the 6 functions. How well do we govern? How well do we identify, protect, detect? And then we're going to take certain categories out of that and ask questions about each of in each of those categories, based on those subcategories also. So we're this, as you can see, is using the the cyber security framework as actionable ways, and as an actionable framework and a repeatable framework too, in terms of generating understanding across our organization. And again, tune and tailor it for the organization. We talk a lot in the foundations course for on cyber resilience about a tailored profile. One of the great things about our cybersecurity framework is it is flexible. It is not you need to do this, and this. You do this if it pertains to my organization, and that's why we tailor and tune questionnaire specifically. Don't be the problem. Don't be the problem. Don't be a blocker. Don't cause potential conflicts. Make sure that it's open and that it is a valuable exercise for everybody, rather than us being the problem. And then the scoring aspect of it all is, give proper guidelines to anybody responding to the questionnaire in terms of how to evaluate. And so here's like a scoring structure of, if we rarely or never do it, put a 0 in. If we do it, but we generally have to go back and do it again, we're a 3. If we're consistent, but we have to make minor adjustments here and there, we're a 5. If we do it very effectively at a high quality, we're at 8. And our organization does and the 10 is a weird one, because if you look at it, it's we do this, but it is a blocker to getting work done, is a 10. So you can see where we want to be is somewhere in that 5 to 8 area, because then we've got some repeatable actions that we can do, and ways to improve without affecting work. So we want to be in that between 5 and the 8 range, when we look at the scoring. If we're at a 10, yeah, we're doing it, but when we think about risk and we think about cybersecurity and cyber resilience, we always think about confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and we need to have that balancing act of those 3. And so we can have high levels of confidentiality and integrity and really have that cyber resilience in place, but it's a detriment to availability. So that's why being a 10 probably might not be the best thing. And that's why we look at 5 to 8. And again, this is just an example. It's not set in stone. It's not a requirement that you score based on these evaluation areas. You can define that however is relevant to your organization. Okay. And here's just kind of that example here. How does your organization understand its larger operating context when making cybersecurity risk management decisions? This falls into the function of govern, and the category of organizational context. And so when we think about that, this is the mission and the expectations of the organization and our stakeholders and the dependencies that we might have in terms of regulatory reasons as well. So that's where this all falls. So from there, now we got to determine our target scores. And so if we've got this scoring function, what are our target? Where are we targeting from there? What do we want to be as an organization? And again, 5 through 8 is that sweet spot because it's really focusing on repeatability and organizational flexibility and awareness, but also not affecting availability. So we've got some different approaches that we can have in terms of those target scores. First off is the minimum score approach. 5 is our first area. We do this on a repeatable basis. We're pretty consistent, but we have to make some minor tweaks. Where 8 is we do this, we chug along pretty well, so we're in an 8. So we might just say, okay, we're fairly we're at a fairly early stage in our cyber resilience. We are going to focus on being at a 5 for all of the cyber security framework functions. Okay, that's our target. So if we're at or above a 5 already, if we're a 6 or a 7, we are in great shape. If we are at a 1 through 4, then we need to do new things. We need to move forward. The strong castle approach, if you look here, we're focusing on protecting. If you think about a castle and you think about having a moat, and we got the big stone walls, and we've got the perches where everybody's looking down upon, looking down, and we've got guards on a constant basis. We're focusing very heavily on protect, and that's that. So we've got protect at a higher target level than the other 5 functions. The other 5 functions are still at that minimum score. We've got the first responder approach, which instead of the strong castle, which focuses on protect, this is going to focus on being reactive, okay, and build upon that. The big city approach is not just focusing on a high score in respond, but also in recover. So we're going to respond to potential risks, and we're going to be able to recover from those risks at a high level. At a 7, we're looking at a 7 rather than an 8 being. So there's still room for improvement as well. And the next one is the world-class approach, which is we're going to be at that high benchmark for everything, for every function of the cybersecurity framework. And that's where we want to be. It's probably where everybody wants to be. What we talked about a few weeks ago, the implementation tiers. This is being at a tier 3. We've got our fully repeatable and have built our risk aware culture, and rarely, if at all, are we needing to make adjustments to that. Now, I'll say rarely because obviously we're going to need to make adjustments in a lot of cases in different ways and in different time frames as well. So those are all things to take into account there. From there, then we determine where our we determine which focus area we're going to be. Now, this isn't set in stone either. This is not specific. We don't, we may say we're going to take the strong castle approach, but we also want to be a 7 in govern. You don't have to say, I'm going to take this approach. These are just benchmarks that you can kind of look at and say, okay, this is where I want to be as an organization. Once we determine our target scores, now we can look at and start conducting our interviews. What is, again, let's not be the problem. We want to foster a good atmosphere, be respectful. Everybody's opinion is honored and welcomed, and we aren't going to be and judgmental or anything about that. And from there, once we've conducted our interviews, now we can start compiling our scores and look at it based on, based on what our minimum requirements are and our maximum requirements, and we can build these spider charts based on that. And around the spider chart the are the functions of the cybersecurity framework and the categories within those functions that we have determined are important to us. And from there, we've got our actual score is the dark filled in line, and then we've got these dotted lines of where our minimum requirement is versus our target requirement. And if you look here, when we look at the minimum target profile, we've got it at a 5 is where we are at a minimum, and our target for this is a 6. So we can identify here that our governance organizational context is below our minimum. We're below a 4. We're like at a 3.7 here, which is really low. Same thing with our govern supply chain, which is SC. We're at a 2 for this particular, for the A point. We're a little bit higher. We're above our minimum for the B. Not sure what the the A and the B would be two different actionable clips, actionable areas, actionable subcategories on that. Some other areas that we're potentially pretty low is in our protect, in our authorization and authentication and authorization category. We're very low on that. We're at a where we were at a 3, below a 3 on that. So we can look at this spider chart and really start to look at areas that we needed improvement, and we're going to prioritize based on where we are and what the gap is to where we want to be. And so that's really, our next step here is what are those scores? And here again, we've averaged those scores. So we take everything and govern. So, we're really low here, but we're above on some of these other ones. So we're bouncing up and down. So our average score actually comes to a 4.8, which still is below the minimum of 5 and 1.2 below the target of 6. And so we can then prioritize our areas of requirements. And then we look at the actual categories and we can see areas of gap. Like I said, the supply chain was one of our lowest. And you can see here, based on these categories, what our 5 main risks are. And that's really the key is understanding what our top 5 risks are and our risk areas are in here. And one of the things that we've got to worry about sometimes is junk data. And like I said, making sure we have the proper stakeholders in place, the proper ones that understand the business, understand the processes, understand what they need to do, and understand things around risk. But some people might have an inflated opinion of that and provide levels of junk data. Now, what we don't ever do is just discourage and, again, not being the problem. We don't throw out or delete junk data. We keep that data. We may reevaluate that, have a discussion with that person in terms of why they answered so far outside the mean of everybody else. Why is there this outlier? And is it perspective? Is it a problem with the questionnaire and things like that, are things that we want to find out. But if we have that kind of junk data, we'll take it out of this calculation, but we'll try and revisit it from that standpoint. Again, communicate and understand then the top 5 risks. What are those risks? They're not just technology. They could be processes, they could be procedures, they could be physical. Those are all things that we need to think about and understand that there's a whole lot of factors that are involved in this. So as we evaluate those top 5 risks, we also need to think about what the availability is of resources to address those risks as well, and to get those risks from, and to decrease that gap from where we are today to where we want to be tomorrow. once we have those risks and have those top 5 risks, now we can start building our plan as part of phase 2. And the key aspect here is prioritization. Again, we've got the top 5 risks, but they may be realigned based on priorities, based on, they may be big risks, there may be big gaps, but if we look at it and the impact and likelihood of that risk may be low, the amount of resources that we may have may be low to address that, the cost to mitigate that risk may be high. So those are all things that go into the prioritization. Again, the roles and responsibilities: who is accountable, who is responsible. Building a RACI document is going to be important. It's important for any project, any plan that you're going to put in place. So those are all things to think about and consider. The ability to scale, can we understanding the ability to scale, again, resources that are available. Maybe we can address multiple risks with the same resources, with the same tools and technologies and processes and procedures in place. Those are all things around that. Again, keeping it simple. We don't want to get too complex. I talked about this in my foundations course this week. We were talking about the profiling. Don't overwhelm everybody with too many questions or too many areas, too many categories and subcategories that they feel it's a waste of their time. So keeping it simple, not overthinking it, understanding what the resources are, all, again, controlling the rate of change. What is emerging? Again, we should be doing some level of risk analysis on all of these risks, as well as not just the interviews. There should be some sort of analysis on that. And again, active change might not be, we might not involve or need change from staff to mitigate a risk. So that may make for an easy victory, by not needing to involve active changes and really change the culture just to mitigate a risk. So we may prioritize that. Again, developing that plan, things that we have to do in terms of that plan, and what we need to do is we're trying to take those steps to that we built to put our plan and our information apart, together to close that where we are today to where we want to be. Again, business value is very important. Creating a dashboard, having a roadmap. The internal and external marketing, like I said, have been a very energized discussion that I've had in this class, in the practitioner course before, because depending on your perspective, in private industry, we do a lot of marketing, we do a lot of discussions and things like that, but we don't in government. That might, it's very process and procedure oriented. So going about and trying to sell agencies and things on change is a little bit more difficult. But having that roadmap, having that way that we are presenting the business value is going to be very important. Okay. And so, I'm getting a couple comments in here. Welcome to those of you that are attending, and something that somebody's pointing out about the practitioner course. Somebody that has the Mastering Cyber Resilience book that you get with this class, is you get the chapters 1 through 10 are essentially the fundamentals or foundations course, and chapter 11 through 14 is actually the practitioner course. So you get a lot of this information that I'm talking about here today. Closing those gaps. Like I said, we want to close those gaps. We're going to prioritize risk based most likely on the highest gap as our top priority. Now, again, this may change. This may adjust accordingly to resources that are available and how we're going to, and what resources we have, what the impact and likelihood of that risk might be. Those could all be things that change our thinking in terms of our prioritization. But first off, though, we're going to look at which one has the biggest gap, and we're going to prioritize the top 5 biggest gaps as our top 5 risks. And then we're going to then the rest of that starts. Now we look at the business, the core business, look at how it's going, how those tasks might be addressed, and keeping it in house as best as possible. But we may have areas where outsourcing makes sense. If it's highly sensitive, highly confidential information, we might want to handle that risk ourselves, handle that risk in house if possible. We may have an issue though where we have strategic outsourcing. We may need to use outsource. They may have tools that we need to address as well. And the cost is going to be key to it as well. When we do like quantitative analysis, we a lot of times look at like the annual, the value of that asset. And one of the things when we talk about cost of implementation and we talk about value of an asset, it's not just replacement cost of that asset, it's implementation costs and operating costs as well. So we got to look at the cost of implementation and build it based on a 3-year model. Okay, so that's kind of the cybersecurity framework, and in this particular, building a cyber resilient organization, we look at the operating cost over 3 years, and then we take that the implementation cost itself is that replacement cost or the acquisition cost of that asset, plus how long and what the cost is for implementation hours and what their hourly cost is. The annual operating cost is any renewal costs in terms of annual maintenance and update and maintenance fees, and then how much does it cost us from an operations perspective. And again, this kind of just some calculations about it. I'm going to move through these a little bit. We can talk about these more when we take the course. And then we take all of that from a financial aspect and we build a business value and analyze business value based on that, based on these 4 quadrants, and our ability to trust the information of that from the information that we get from the stakeholders, from what we're evaluating and looking through in those stakeholders. Again, the internal marketing then aspect goes into all of that. Okay, we've got the costs, we've got how it works in terms of our business value. We want to understand then what our intended outcomes are and how we're going to manage and maintain the levels of performance within all of that. So how does that all, when we take that then to the stakeholders, and I saw something really, really interesting this morning that I got to dig into is Microsoft has built some Power BI dashboards around Defender XDR. And I want to look at that a little bit more. I want to look and see if there's something around purview and risk and all of those to build those dashboards and to really take this to that level of dashboarding and reporting that we'll talk about here in a minute, to kind of show those stakeholders that outcome and the value of where we're driving our overall action plan to decrease those gaps of those top 5 risks. And really the key and the main thing to that is having some sort of metric or key performance indicator. And again, talk about in profiling what some of those metrics and key performance indicators are. So those profile documents that you've built previously as you've gone through building that cyber resilient organization and following the cybersecurity framework is going to be very important in terms of what this all looks like. And again, how do we then take that, and then the external marketing approach, we could take and build dashboards based on here's our areas of concern and how are we addressing that. Now, the interesting thing here is this is external marketing. This could be viewed as potentially damaging and sensitive information and really intellectual property. the but and yes, KPIs for various solutions and various security tools and technology is going to be be very helpful and should be very important in terms of the value of investment in those tools as well, not just how it's used to meter and provide KPIs for uh, for how we're closing that gap. And again, um, a little bit of a not heated but energized discussion around this particular document and using this scorecard as something of a external marketing tool, because right here we're essentially uh, publishing or showing where our key risks are and our key vulnerabilities are in our organization. So this needs to be tailored to some degree depending on who we're externally marketing it to. We might, this could be to our partners, to, if especially if we're using like a managed services provider or a managed security services provider, cloud security access broker. We may show them this, show them where these risks are, show them where it pertains to their technology and what we're using for, with them. We may show it to an external auditor or a trusted consultant to get feedback and information. Probably don't want to show it in this detail to customers, and definitely don't want to just publish it on the internet as external marketing. So handling of this information is going to be generally very sensitive. The last phase that we're going to cover here today at a high level, again, if you want to hear all of this in much more detail, like I said, I have a class, 6 hours of discussing this coming up in a couple weeks. We need to continue, key things around all, maintenance and updates. All goes around a continuous monitoring, continuous improvement of anything. As a, for an action plan, your project managers, your PMO office probably going to have a say and be involved in this as well. But we want to continually update those scorecards and update those dashboards, update the KPIs, update the progress, and ways to kind of keep that flowing and keep the momentum going is having monthly check-ins. And the monthly check-ins should be fairly tactical. We're bringing in those responsible parties that are involved in our action plan and are involved in the execution of it all. So then they can ask for help if they need help. We can find out the progress that they're making. Again, very tactical. The monthly check-in should be very tactical. Doesn't necessarily need the executives unless there's or leadership, unless somebody within the team needs a little bit of nudging. They're not coming through with their responsibilities. They're not coming through with their milestones and things like that. They're not meeting their KPIs. So we'll work on that. We're also going to celebrate the wins. Hey, we completed this task, and that helps us move to this next task. So it has us ahead of schedule, and those are things that we want to put into those check-ins, and then really from there, what's our next step? What's our step? And what are the key milestones going from this month to next month when we have our next check-in? What do we need to have done? What do we need? What needs to be done? Who needs some assistance? And what are those next steps? Where are we going? And where are we prioritizing going forward are very key aspects of that. Quarterly meetings takes a broader landscape. This is where we invite those executives. We invite those leaders. And this is much more business related than tactical. We're going to take stakeholder questions. We're going to talk to them about where we are in the process, what our next goals are, what we need from them. This is where we potentially say, hey, we need more money and things like that. Hey, we're tracking very good here, but we need more resources to stay on task. Those are what the quarterly meetings are going to be. And it's really to really to make sure that we're following along on the dashboard. Things are tracking appropriately. And if we are short and light on resources, where are we going from there? Are very key pieces to the puzzle here. Um, and then the final piece is having some sort of annual summit. If we're a big enough organization, let's have a summit. Let's have a big, a lot of big organizations, especially like managed service providers, tend to have, a annual kickoff meeting. And those annual kickoff meetings can be a way to focus on the success of our action plan the previous 12 months and move forward from there. Each of these phases, something that I didn't point out, has a timeline to it. Phase one should be, in terms of identifying our risk, and going through our interviews and everything, should be a 1 month, is considered a 1 month process. The next part of prioritizing our risk, doing all of the external marketing and getting buy-in on resources, and essentially defining our plan, is a 1 month process. And then this last phase of really executing that plan and the maintenance and updates of it all is 10 months. So it's a 12-month process. That 13th month, we should have this cybersecurity summit annual celebration, and we should be refocusing and building upon into the next year what we may have fallen short in accomplishing, finishing that up, as well as are we addressing a next set of risks? Is a risk that we addressed in the previous priority still a priority because maybe emerging technology has created a new level of risk in that area? Those are all things we want to do. But the key to this all is re-energizing and really celebrating what we've done and how successful we've been the previous year, so that we can then move forward into the next year with even more organizational buy-in than we had previously. That's really ultimately our goal, and really where we're going to come from and go from here is exactly that. And those are things that we're going to continually work towards and consider as our next steps and in our next aspect of our action plan for the next year, as we build our repeatability in our risk aware culture. We don't talk about maturity in the cyber security framework, but we are building a mature organization. We're building a risk aware organization, and we're building an organization that has repeatable processes, procedures, and ways that we are governing, identifying, protecting, detecting, responding, and recovering to threats within, to risks within our organization. That's really kind of summarizes it all. And so that brings us to the end of today's session. Again, join me next week. We'll talk about risk strategy and governance from an organizational as well as a system approach when we're talking about in the risk management framework perspective. And then finally, in 2 weeks, we will talk about AI risk and ethics as well. So thanks to a few of you that have made comments, positive comments, I think, about everything that we're covering here today. So really appreciate that. If you want to hear more and learn more about risk management and cyber resilience, again, I have these courses coming up. Like I said, generally a 1-day course. I offer those for anywhere between $500 and $1,000 a day, because I'm trying to build more awareness around around Captain Hyperscaler as well as the Accolade brand. We are offering those generally at $300, but special continuation of Cyber Awareness Month here on November 1st, I am giving an additional $50 off for $250. Again, you can go to the Captain Hyperscaler LinkedIn page. If you follow me, it might have popped up on my feed. But go to the Captain Hyperscaler page I just posted this morning with the link that you can register and pay for that course for one of these 2 courses for $250. Just pay your $250, give me your email address, and then I'll ask you which one you want to attend, or you can pay if if you reach out to me on LinkedIn and you want to attend both these courses, I will give you an additional $50 off. So for $450, I will invite you to both of these courses if you'd like as well. And like I said, if you don't have the Mastering Cyber Resilience book, you will get that with the Cyber Resilience course, and you will also I will also give you a special discount for the foundational courses that are on Udemy right now, so that you can kind of get yourself prepared for the practitioner course. So welcome everybody, welcome and thank you everybody for attending here today. Again, if you need me or you need anything, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I do have my X or Twitter handle here. I'm not using it right now, so don't DM me on that social media site. Message me on LinkedIn, or you can email me directly at the email address on this slide. And that is all for today. So thanks everybody. Thank you for the comments. I'm glad that these sessions are helpful to you, and I'm glad you're enjoying them. Like I said, I'm ending them in a couple of weeks, but that doesn't mean that I don't decide to restart something else. So keep connected to and following Captain Hyperscaler on LinkedIn and myself, and you will stay on top of different sessions that I'm providing. So thanks everybody, and have a great rest of your day. And as I like to say at Captain Hyperscaler, continue to learn and skill up like a superhero. So thanks everybody.